Hey, folks. Yes, he is the King of Kings. You were just listening to Mike Lee from Barren Cross. That's a guy I would like to get on this show sometime and interview him and hear his testimony. He's been on quite a trip. But hey, if you don't know, my name is Tom. Her name is Vicky Joy. This is Through the Black. And Vic, I was kind of thinking about this is what this show is. Okay. I'm kind of the slacker student, and you're kind of like the nerdy friend, like
Okay.
that does her homework, and then I want to copy off your homework, right? So a lot of time. But folks, tonight I did my homework.
Woo, thank goodness.
Let me just say that doesn't mean a thing, okay? Because even when I do my homework, it still doesn't mean I'm getting an A, okay?
Participation award.
Right. So, but guys, we're going to jump into it in a few minutes here, but I just I want to mention, hey, throughtheblack.com, that's the website, that's the place where you can go and you can pick up our Ezekiel 8 apparel. And I'll just show you one of these shirts right now. Of course, the Ezekiel 8 logo on the back, and I will fight for you. Okay. So that among it is well with my soul. The gates of hell shall not prevail. We got some hoodies. So anyway, yeah, you can go over there and check that out, throughtheblack.com. That's where we also have a couple of the movies that we made and stuff like that. And folks, don't forget about Vicky Joy's book. They only come out at night. And they only come out at night.net or .com?
.net or just lamarzulli.net.
Or lamarzulli.net. That's where you can find it. Spiral of Life published the book. And, of course, Colleen's book, The Lie Effect. You can find that on Amazon. There you go. They only come out at night.net. And speaking of books, here's a book that none of us wrote, but I just want to mention it because this is not what we normally talk about, but I recently heard about this book through a friend of the show, Ian Chadwick. Many of you guys know who he is. And it's called How We Love. And my wife and I are actually reading this book together. And we read through the first chapter tonight. We have not read a book together for a long, long time. And I think the reason that is because my wife doesn't really like to read books with me. But
that explains it.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm just kind of, saying, hey, would you read this? And so we are. And I'm telling you what, I saw some interviews with this couple that wrote this book. This is really good. I have anything that comes out like the love languages, boundaries. I'm always interested in it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in just, one, strengthening my own marriage, my own relationships. But Vic, we talk to a lot of people, and just because of that, consequently, sometimes we do, just ministry to marriages. Okay. And we need to know about this stuff. So this book, though, in watching some of the interviews, I'm like, whoa, these guys know me. You know what I'm saying? Because the idea behind it is how we are loved when we're kids, determines the kind of love that we give when we're older. Okay. If somebody is in just kind of a situation where they're ignored, then they have a different love style, is what they call it. If somebody's abused, then they have a different love style. And there's what we want to do. The goal of the book is to get you to have a love style like Jesus does. Okay. So anyway, I haven't read the book yet, but my wife and I are reading it. And if you're looking for that kind of stuff, I just want to recommend that to you. Anyway, enough of that. Vic, I know we just saw each other last night, but let me just ask, how are you doing?
I can't complain. I'm a little tired. I've noticed there's something about week 2 that I'm like, oop, and then hopefully I won't get sick week 3 like I did. There's something about week 2. Like week 1, you got that of the season. You're all like, yeah, jazz, new thumbnails. This is great.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I'm a little tired, but I'm gonna kick it into high gear. And
Hey, I'm tired. You're tired. If we think we're tired, imagine how Katie feels.
I
Okay.
can't. I
No,
can't
I
imagine.
can't either. I can't either. Somebody asked if are the name of the authors Milan and Kay Yurkovich. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'll hold that up closer. Milan and Kay Yurkovich, How We Love. And this is even the expanded edition. I guess this came out in 2006, by the way. So, Vic, I just recently was in Pennsylvania. I know we already covered this, but I talked about satanic ritual abuse. And there's a segment in that talk where I just kind of do a breakdown of different types of Satanism. Okay. If you're, watching this show a lot, this is what we say. There are 4 main types of Satanism, and you could break it down even further. But we're just, the 4 main types that we talk about are the atheistic Satanists, your Anton LaVey's, your church, satanic temples. Then you have your theistic Satanists, the guys that really believe the devil is real and they love him and they worship him and they want to appease him. Then you have your experimenters, which what we're going to talk about mostly tonight. And then you have your generational Satanists. Those are the undergrounders, the people that you would never be able to pick out of a lineup.
The real deal.
Yeah. So, Vic, tonight we're going to be talking about satanic crime and the experimenter type Satanist. Okay. Now, these people, they might be theistic. Okay. But they're not necessarily part of an organization. They are a lot of times lone rangers. They'll get some kind of book on Satanism. It could be the Satanic Bible. It could be a book of spells, something like that. And then they get involved in Satanism. It used to be called self-styled Satanists. Okay. An example is Richard Ramirez. Okay. He was a self-styled Satanist. He was a serial killer. All right. So we're gonna look at some different things. Now we're gonna touch on the generational Satanist tonight. That's gonna come into play as well. But I want to just kind of talk about some of these cases. And one of them, this is what I did. You guys can do this. Type in your state and then type in satanic crime, satanic murder, and see what pops up. There's, usually something in every state that you can find. Okay. And in countries from obviously the UK, Australia, you can probably find some in New Zealand, Africa. It's ongoing. Okay. Satanic murders. And even Russia, they have satanic murders, people that are involved in Satanism. But anyway, I want to jump into it tonight. I want to hear some of your comments about this. But you can just type in, Satanism and see what pops up. And that's how I found this case. And it's just a few years old. This is the murder of Caitlin Root. Okay. Now, Caitlin Root was she was a victim that her predators found on Facebook. And the murderers are Amanda Bennett. I'm not looking at I'm going to have Katie bring up the story. But Amanda Bennett and Sebastian something. So let's take a look. This happened in St. Joseph, Missouri. So I'm not sure which one this is, but let me read a little bit to you guys. And we're going to talk about this. A Missouri teenager has pled guilty to murdering another teen and says that the killing was part of a satanic sacrifice. And this was in March 2017. Amanda Bennett, 17. And they, by the way, this came out in March. The sacrifice actually took place in October in 2016. Okay. And I remember when this came out, when this happened, I went back and I looked up the obit, and everything was real fresh back then. Of course, it's kind of old news now. Amanda Bennett, 17, changed her plea last week from not guilty to guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Caitlin Root, also 17. She told the court that she and Sebastian Dowell, 18, had decided in October that they needed to kill 2 people a year as part of a demonic religion. Okay. Bennett said that she consequently messaged a couple of depressed people on Facebook, and when Root responded, she arranged a meetup with the girl in the park. While these 2 walked along a jogging trail in Hyde Park, Bennett testified she was advised by Dowell that it was time to carry out their plan. Bennett told the court that she struck Root with a stick, and then Dowell knocked the girl to the ground, choked her, and inserted a syringe into her neck. So recently, by the way, I think it was about a year ago, the boyfriend, Sebastian Dowell, he filed for an appeal. And I read a little bit of the appeal tonight, and of course, he's saying that the girl was the mastermind.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Of course. What a mess. Yeah, that's the thing. They always end up turning on each other, and it's similar with the Slender Man case. Those girls were much younger, but that's the thing that was so striking to me about a lot of these cases that we were looking at tonight, is just how young so many of them were. It makes me wonder. I mean, if we've really debunked the satanic panic, it's just all made up. Okay, where are all these teenagers getting this idea? Like, why is this still cool? If he, like, I mean, in our era, we blamed it all on the music, and so none of these people, like, remember back in the 80s, anytime there was a suicide, it was like some rock band was brought into the mix. And now, you've got these teenagers talking about, oh, this was part of a satanic cult thing, but they're not saying anything is about where do local teenagers just, join these cults, like, isn't that what we want to kind of get to as parents? Like, when and where are my kids getting exposed to this?
Right. This case is from Missouri, and there was another case that I don't think I put anything in there. Maybe I did, but I remember it when it originally happened, and I didn't realize it was in the Ozarks, so I didn't know the location. So they killed Stephen Newberry, but one of those guys that was involved in that murder is trying to get out of prison. So I remember when you and I were doing kind of this, covering a lot of these teen killers within the last year, that they're trying to get their sentences overturned because a lot of them are getting life in prison as teenagers, and the parents are fighting for them because they don't think it's fair because their brains aren't fully developed and they did things that, that had consequences that are going to last the rest of their life. So anyway, let's go back to this article here real quick. And I'm going to read some more of this. So this is the murder of Caitlin Root. And it says, while these 3 walked along the jogging trail in Hyde Park. Okay. No, Dowell soon told Bennett that they needed to stab Root in order for the killing to be a pure sacrifice. When Bennett said she couldn't do it, Dowell stabbed the girl instead. According to the News Press Now, Bennett told the court that the 2 then stripped Root of her clothing, and when they saw the teen standing up, Dowell stabbed her again, notifying Bennett that they must cut Root's throat. Bennett testified that she told Dowell that she couldn't do it, and he carried out the act himself. So anyway, there's another article, and it's the other article is on a Christian site. I think there's a video on one of those, Katie, if you want to bring that one up, and then we'll watch that video. It might be about her plea or whatever. So very fascinating. It's like, what's going on in your life? Where are your parents at? Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Where you end up in a situation like that. Vic, it's not only like satanic, I mean, we're focusing on the satanic elements of the crime, okay? But there are murders where I read a book a few years ago about these two teenage girls that killed their friend.
Yeah.
And they were not involved in Satanism whatsoever, but
Right.
they just decided that she had to die. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of a
I
thing. We've covered these stories. What in the heck? What do you think is going on in a teenage kid's mind to think they can get away with this? Or
To me, there's been this fascinating shift because they poured millions of dollars into that satanic panic campaign to get that ship turned around. Because in the 80s, people actually believed these stories, and parents were, you know, had their finger on the pulse, so to speak. So all we have to do now is Google satanic crime, and easily all this stuff pulls up where it links the crime directly to Satanism, which the crime units used to hide that. And so what I don't understand is, why is this not creating another scenario where they have to call the satanic panic trolls out? I mean, I'm being facetious when I say it's debunked. I mean, I'm
right.
just too tired to laugh at my own jokes at this point. But the fact of the matter is is the reason there's no satanic panic campaign now, is it more of a cultural thing where everybody knows it's going on now? No one has the time or the energy to debunk it. And do we maybe not care as a culture? Have we become so desensitized since the first iteration in the 80s that nobody's even riled up anymore? Have we become that desensitized as a culture with everything else that's going on, that even when the news media flat out says that this is satanic, nobody seems to even care, and even the satanic panic trolls don't even waste their breath trying to debunk it.
That's a good point. It's almost as if maybe they feel like they did such a good job. You know what I'm
Maybe.
saying?
Yeah.
Debunking this, that it's okay to talk about it. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
did notice in a couple of the articles that they would not mention Satanism about this case, because I put in the search the names, the keyword names, and Satanism, and then I would go onto the page and do a Command F to find a word, and some of them didn't say Satanism. So this might be
Mm,
one of them right here.
okay.
Maybe, or it could have been the last one actually that we just read. The word Satanism wasn't in it, but in this one it is, and it says, yeah, okay, no, this is the one. It says religious ceremony. So let me read that. It says Bennett admitted the two decided that they had to murder two people as part of their religious ceremonies. She said she got on social media to find two victims. Wow. What do you think about that, Vic? Right
Yeah,
there, like it's basically protecting Satanism in a way.
it is. So this cross pollinates with other fields of work I do, because I've spent a good deal of my life working with special needs people, and I've also, with LGBTQA and same sex attracted people. I am drawn to vulnerable people, and oh my gosh, the internet, Tom, it's like a minefield. And same as in Jesus's day, the most vulnerable are the ones that are getting robbed and killed. And so imagine going on the internet because you're depressed, and it's just the ultimate in betrayal. Like, someone is reaching out to you, like, let's meet. I care about you. I want to help you. And then they brutally murder you. I mean, talk about going from bad to worse. There's a few stories like that. There's one that we're going to go through where the woman took a ride home from her work. And I don't want to live in this world where I look sideways everywhere I go and I don't trust people anymore. But I mean, how anyone would look for meaningful, trusting mentors and heroes and friends on Craigslist, and I don't understand it anymore. How many of these stories do we have to hear? And unfortunately, again, it's always the kids, and it's the kids, like, meet me in the park at 10. It used to be like the cliche, like, you know, if someone says meet me in a park, just don't show up. Like, how many people are gonna like show up in a park with someone that they met online? It never ends well. I don't know how many times we have to learn this lesson.
I can't imagine what that family is going through. You know what I'm saying?
Ugh, I
And
know.
even the guy in the Craigslist killer, this guy thought he was going to get something, right? And it was probably a promise of some kind of sexual encounter. I don't know specifically, but that's what happened up in Wisconsin with the two girls up there. And they actually didn't get away with murdering anybody, but they were torturing this guy, and he got lured all the way up from Texas, and
Oh,
he thought he was going to have some kind of sexual encounter with these girls probably, and he barely made it out of there with his life. He like crawled out a window.
yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing too. And they'll probably be talking about this on Saturday, because I think Sean is going to be talking about Dahmer. But we hear about the stories where the bodies show up, so we hear about the murders, but there's an equal number of these horrible stories where the people are tortured for years, or they're put in a basement, or
mm,
they're put in a, and that's the kind of thing I don't even know what to do with that. Like, think of the trauma when you live through something like this, and what that would mean for how you trust people. And I don't know. I can't even get my head around it, Tom. Some of these, and I've heard these stories. It's not even. I think one of the stories we're gonna go through. It's people that just, whether they link it to Satanism or not, these sickos who watch all these horror movies and want to know what it feels like to kill somebody, and they lure you to their garage, and they've got their whole Freddy Krueger laboratory all set up waiting for you. I mean, and most of these cases too, you hear they got drunk, and I do not know where the discernment of women and children are anymore. You're going to get in a car, go to someone's house, and get liquored up where you can't even defend yourself or run for the door. What is wrong with people, Tom? What are they thinking?
no, it's kind of crazy. And another element to this, I think, is the complete disregard for human life. Okay.
Yes.
um,
Yes. Yeah.
there there's a song by Marilyn Manson called "Disposable Teens,"
Yes.
and it's inspired by, I think, the Columbine events, right? But he kind of alludes to something in the song, and it kind of gives me chills thinking about it. It's like, wow, Marilyn Manson got this figured out. This is pretty intense. But he talks about, he kind of alludes to that these teens were born under a law that says we could have killed them in the womb if we wanted to. So it's
Mm,
disposable teens. In other words, their lives don't even matter. So if we can kill them in the womb, who cares if they shoot up a school? You know what I mean? Because
right. Oh
we
gosh.
trained them that their life doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and with the evolution too, your monkeys, survival of the fittest. If you're dumb and stupid, you're gonna die. You're not. Oh, the whole
Right.
the genetic stuff that's going on. Yeah, yeah. You're far more eloquent than me tonight, so I'm glad that you did your homework, because you just stated very eloquently what I was trying to get my head around, and that is, yeah, just the total disregard for life, like the evolution and the abortion and all of the just the genetic, Georgia Guidestone stuff is all catching up with us, and we now have 2 or 3 generations of kids that never lived on the planet, where you actually would, throw yourself in front of a bus to save a stranger.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just so crazy. It really, really is. Um, you are just slightly, I know you're never supposed to mention a woman's age, but you're just slightly older than I am, right? And um,
like this much.
I was born just a few months after Roe v. Wade passed, and just that whole concept is kind of crazy to me. For 49 going on 50 years almost, in just a couple months, 50 years. Now, of course, in this last year, Roe v. Wade was struck down. It doesn't seem to have slowed down the abortion industry, at all. But hey, at least we can say, we tried, or we're still working on it, right? So, and hopefully, people will try to hold these people accountable that are now, supposedly, the murder of children's not protected by the federal law, and it's going state to state. So let me just say this. I do believe that, the overthrow of Roe is slowing things down, and to save babies, that's a good thing. But, it's nowhere near going far enough. So anyway, let's go on to another one of these stories. I don't know which one's next and what I sent you, Katie, but go ahead and throw up whatever the next one is. And, it's amazing to me. Okay, here we go. Pennsylvania Craigslist killer. And I looked this up. I didn't know if I would be able to find it. So this is going to be kind of hard to find. But, hey, there's one from Newsweek that I want to look at. But let's go ahead and look at this one real quick, okay? So this, of course, is about, what is her name? Miranda Barber. So what's that? A woman charged with her newlywed husband in the murder of a man they met through Craigslist. Interesting pattern here. Admitted to the crime in a jailhouse interview with the newspaper, and said she has killed more than 20 others across America. Claims police said they are investigating. An interview with the Daily Item in Sunbury, 19-year-old Miranda Barber said she wants to plead guilty to the killing of Tony LaFera in November. She also said in the interview that she's killed at least 22 other people from Alaska to North Carolina in the last 6 years as part of her involvement in a satanic cult. Now, a lot of people remember the Craigslist killer, but they may not know that she claimed that she was part of a satanic cult. So there's something interesting in that news. I think it's Newsweek article. If you could bring this up, Katie. So go, if you can. We're going to scroll down pretty far, and it's maybe try like the 15th paragraph. I found this in there, or do a search for the word gun. It might help. So let's. Okay. Yeah. Let's do this. Yes. You found what I was looking for. Go back up to the paragraph before this, because she says she joined the satanic cult at the age of 12. I kind of slid into it, but they weren't just into Satan. They were into hating minorities too. She insists Satanism has been a positive influence in her life and helped her harness the darkness inside of her. Most of the time, I worship a dark entity, she explains. But just because it's dark doesn't mean that it is bad. She claims to have committed her first murder when she was 13. It was a man who owed money to her cult's leader, whom she identifies only as Forrest. She says when she lured the man into a dark alley with the promise of sex, and Forrest jumped out of the shadows and shot him. Forrest shot him in the chest, but he was still alive, she says. He put the gun in my hand. He put his finger over my finger and pulled the trigger. Wow. What does that sound like? That blew me away when I read it over 10 years ago. That's exactly what we hear in satanic cults. Most of the time, though, it's in regard to using a knife to cut somebody open or to sacrifice somebody with a knife. But here she is telling, the story, but with a gun instead. What do you think, Vic?
Yeah, this particular story stood out to me because when it said that she had killed 20, I thought, okay, something's going on here then. There's something organized here. There's cover-ups or there's protection, because you and I have studied a lot of these teenage, these guys who are in high school and they're kind of outcasts and they admire the Columbine shooters. And so they're going to be the next one, and they always get caught the first time because, they don't know what they're doing. They're bumbling around. They're walking around with evidence all over the place. Half the time they're so proud of what they've done, they've given it away and they're telling everybody. So a lot of teenagers, to kill and get away with 20 of them without, anybody figuring it out, there's something really organized backing you up, because I don't think the average kid
Yeah.
could do 20 and get away with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that she was probably witnessed or involved in 20 for her to carry it off herself, because obviously she couldn't do one without getting caught, right?
Right.
So I kind of, when I researched this years ago, what I came up with was, okay, she used to be a part of a cult where, in a gang type of thing, where they were killing people and sacrificing people. That's what she was trained to do. Then when she got married, she brought her husband into it. And again, most of this is speculation here, folks, so I don't know. But this is what it seemed like to me when I researched it a long time ago. And they were like, okay, you want to know what it feels like to kill somebody? Here, we'll do it together, and it's like natural born killers, two lovers, in love, and they want to kill somebody, and they, that's what they do. But they, these people got caught. So kind of interesting. Now, according to police, I remember I wanted to interview the police officer that interviewed her. Okay. And I looked him up, and I was going to set this up. I was actually thinking about including this in, I was doing research for Detestable and trying to track him down, but it was, I ended up going in a different direction, so we didn't do it. But
Wow.
I mean, she discloses a lot. And I think the conclusion was they couldn't find any evidence that any of these things had happened. Doesn't mean they didn't happen. Maybe she's exaggerating. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would confess to a murder they didn't commit, but it's been done. But this seems like, okay, her, recounting of the story is very familiar to us, but, just using a gun instead of a knife. So, okay, Satanic Temple, seriously, they have a whole part of their, they've got a whole Sunday school branch of their ministry, the Satanic Temple, that is all about debunking satanic crime. There are others out there that say Satanists don't kill. All right. Hey, you know what? I don't have any problem admitting Christians kill people. Okay. What I mean by that is people in the name of Jesus, whether they're Christian or not, you know what I'm saying, kill people. And Vic, sometimes things happen in the heat of the moment, okay? But somebody that's a Christian is not going to go out and premeditate, the murder of somebody and carry it out. So not somebody with Jesus in their heart, okay? We value life, we love life, but there are people that go to church. But the Satanic Temple and some of these other occultists and Satanists, no, that's out of the question. There's never been a Satanist that's ever killed anybody, really. Okay, and then when we point these types of stories out, they're like, that's not a real Satanist.
Yeah, and I also think what could be going on there is they're being very clever with their words, because when they do abortion rituals, you can go online and on TikTok and stuff, and girls are, Wiccans are showing you how to set up your altar with your, aborted tissue and all this crap. And they don't use the word murder. They don't consider it murder. They consider it a ritual, and they consider it. So what I'm thinking is they're saying like, oh, we've never killed anybody. Because in their mind, no, this person sacrificed themselves for us. And I wonder if they're just, playing around with the semantics in their head. So yes, people have shed blood and don't breathe anymore after they've come into our coven, but it wasn't a murder. How like kids play that game. I didn't steal the cookie; it fell out of the jar. I wonder if that's part of what's going on here too.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of kind of blurred lines in these types of, Satanism that these guys are practicing, in these stories that we're covering tonight. So it seems as though this girl, the Craigslist killer, came out of something that was more organized, like a coven or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's not necessarily self-styled. The first couple, it seems like they got a hold of a satanic Bible or something like that. Now, again, we haven't researched it. We don't know. Okay, the questions we would ask: what about the parents? Is there any Masons? Do they speak German? Is there any programming, anything like that? It usually doesn't go down this way. And a cult necessarily wouldn't throw their own under the bus like this, because that's too close for home. This seems like it kind of happened apart from any type of a cult. Okay. Who knows what this couple was doing, watching movies that they, that had an impact on them, or, music obviously can have an impact. Who knows? These people that are into Satanism, they love, the darker films. They're the kind of people that are going to show up at a horror movie convention. Okay. They're going to like the dark stuff when it comes to music and things like that. And that's the way that they dress. So we are really, when we say, okay, a Christian wouldn't do this, it's true. Okay. Christians would not premeditate, okay, and then carry out a murder if they are living according to God's word. Well, Satanists don't really have any rules, okay? Satanists are advocating for the murder of babies, okay? We know that. And they're fighting to hold on to that right to keep killing babies. So there's human sacrifice. So why would they kill? It wouldn't surprise me if there were all kinds of people, that were connected to some of these satanic groups that were involved in murder or plotting murder or wanting to murder in some way, but it's just not the heart of a Christian. So yeah, exactly, Colleen, a true Christian.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to me how the last gal, the Craigslist one, said, I worship a dark entity, but I don't do anything bad. Like, it doesn't mean I do anything bad. And so but then you see the disconnect in the logic between I don't do anything bad, but 20 people may have lost their lives. And so that inability to define, because you are outside of the constructs of the scriptures. If you're outside of the construct of the scriptures, your definitions for good and bad and right and wrong are going to be way off, especially if you're under the influence of human and non-human mentors that are also programming you otherwise.
Yeah. So let's go and check out another story. I think the next one up is from Tennessee. It might be, there's a couple from Tennessee, and I can't remember when I quit sending stories over. Okay. No. Let's watch this video here. So
Right.
Thank you, Katie. I think this is a video. So maybe not.
Please hold.
So if we get that video, we'll watch it. But here we go.
There we go.
About a teenager who claims to be a satanic serial killer responsible for more than 20 murders. Investigators are now saying that her story cannot be verified. Here's ABC's Mara Schiavocampo.
Miranda, did you really kill 22 people?
Tuesday, 19-year-old Miranda Barber briefly met with local officials in Sunbury, Pennsylvania, but she did not provide any information about her shocking claims of being a serial killer. In an explosive jailhouse interview with a local newspaper last week, the newlywed and young mom confessed to killing, quote, less than 100 people in several states, starting at just 13 when she joined a satanic cult, saying, quote, when I hit 22, I stopped counting.
She looked at me, dead square in the eyes and said this so matter-of-factly that if I were in law enforcement, I would take it seriously.
And they are. Authorities in California, North Carolina, Alaska, and Pennsylvania have already started looking for any evidence to verify those chilling claims.
Our investigators have been in contact with law enforcement officers and with the FBI.
Barber and her husband of just 3 weeks, 22-year-old Elliot Barber, are being held without bail. Police say the couple murdered a Pennsylvania man they lured on Craigslist simply for fun. This week, Barbara's attorney reportedly filed paperwork asking she be spared the death penalty.
Officials in Alaska and Pennsylvania note that so far in their states, they have not been able to verify any of Barbara's claims. She'll be in court again for a pretrial hearing next week. And we should note that both Miranda Barber and her husband have pleaded not guilty to the Craigslist.
So, and when you look at Miranda, look at her body language compared to the guy's body language. She, it really speaks of her being a multiple, probably. I don't know for sure. I mean, if she was 13 when she joined the cult, that's kind of old to be split, but not impossible. But you don't have to be split to have personality problems, and the new programming is a lot more advanced. So
Right.
anyway, yeah. So let's move on to the next story. This one's kind of crazy. This guy, yeah.
Oh,
So, this, yeah, that's the dude. So, Confessions of a Cannibal, and of course, the Sun is kind of tabloidy. I believe I wonder if this is the UK story or not. I'm not sure, but okay, U.S. News. Okay, so Confessions of a Cannibal: Inside the Twisted Mind of a Cannibal Killer, Gregory Scott Hale, who butchered stranger after sex. Twisted murderer Gregory Scott Hale was obsessed with a serial killer called the Night Stalker. This twisted cannibal idolized a serial killer and was obsessed with satanic worship before he butchered a stranger after having sex with her. Gregory Scott, 37, also posted a sickening rants before he brutally murdered Lisa Hyder 3 years ago in Tennessee, USA. Nice pick. Crime author Ryan Becker, who has studied the barbaric killing, said that Hale had become fascinated with the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez before he targeted Mrs. Hyde. Mirror Online. That's the UK thing I was thinking about. Ramirez went on a murderous spree in California in 1989 and was convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, and 11 sexual assaults. Hale added Hale adored Ramirez obsessively, reading his manifesto, and posted on Facebook when the killer died in 2014. Rest in peace, Night Stalker. Wish I could have met you. So, and this is the woman that was killed. There's the guy again. A warped love of Satanism, weapons, venomous stakes, and cannibalism was evident in his blog and pictures on Facebook. Disturbing comments from him include, "I hug the people I hate, so I know how big to dig the hole in my backyard." Pretty just sick after sick, revelation from this guy. If someone were to become a cannibal and eat a vegetarian, would the vegetarian taste like fake soy meat? Goofy stuff. After being fired from a meat processing plant and for taking home blood, bones, and the eyes of slaughtered animals, Hale was forced to move back with his parents. Lots of red flags here, folks. Yeah. Hale picked up and befriended Mrs. Hyde, 37, outside of a liquor store where she worked. Mrs. Hyde, who had ovarian cancer and was the mother of 6, was separated from her husband, but she was still close to her ex and called him asking for a lift on June 8th. So it goes on, and we can look at some of these pictures. That's the house where it happened. Tragically, she accepted the lift from Hale instead before her former partner, who was some distance away, arrived. Becker says the pair went back to his home. They got drunk and had sex. When Hyde fell asleep, Hale launched a horrific machete attack. He reportedly stabbed Mrs. Hyder, covering the bed and the walls in her blood. And I don't need to read anymore. But this guy, there's nothing alludes to he was part of a cult. Okay. It seems like he was on his own, obsessed with Ramirez, Satanism, cannibalism, and things like this. Okay. It's like he was mentally ill, psychopath, obviously. And he was obsessed with killing people. And it was just a matter of time before he killed. Thank God he got caught, because he probably would have killed a lot of other people.
Yeah. Hey, parents, I don't care if your kid is 15 or 37 living in your basement. Pay attention to who your kids' heroes are. I mean, seriously. I mean, I know not all kids are going to admit that Richard Ramirez is their hero, but even some of these musicians, and I mean, we got to pay attention to who our kids are worshiping and idolizing. This story, it shocked me. Like, I thought, oh my goodness, this poor woman with ovarian cancer and 6 children, it was just like getting a ride home. And I thought she got like butchered, in the car. And I'm like, one of these hitchhiker stories, right? Like, oh, why'd you take a ride from a stranger? Because that's what the Bundy used to do. He used to pick people up in the car, and most of them didn't make it home. And so when I got to the part where it's like, oh, she voluntarily went home with them and got drunk and slept with, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so again, she probably could have avoided this if she had just, well, who knows? If she had said, drop me off, maybe it would have gotten violent. I don't know. But there should be a rule, Tom, that anytime you have an interaction with a stranger and they want you in their car or they want you to come home, you must look at their Facebook page first, because those pictures of him were so creepy. It's like, excuse me, I'm going to check your Facebook page. No, I'll walk home. Thank you.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
This just happened just a few years ago, Vic. So people want to say, well, that was a thing, satanic panic, that happened back in the late 80s and 90s. These crimes are happening on a regular basis, okay? You can do a search for a satanic pedophile ring out of Cincinnati. You can do searches for other satanic crimes that have happened in the last few years. They're happening on a regular basis. They're happening in other countries, okay? And sometimes they are cloaked. Sometimes they don't bring out. Imagine, now we've seen the whitewash, okay, in a couple of these stories. How many other stories are out there that are satanic crimes, but Satanism never gets brought up, okay, either by law enforcement or the press?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time Russ mentioned that Dahmer was satanic with this power cone and all that stuff. Man, I mean, I remember being a teenager working at Target when that story, broke, and it was over all the magazines on the end caps and everything. And we were so shocked, because we were in Minnesota, so that was close to home. Wasn't he in Wisconsin? I can't remember, but
Milwaukee, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you never heard anything when the story actually broke. You never heard anything about that. It was just that he was twisted, and so if that high profile of a case, they're never going to tell you that information. Think about all of the low profile cases where they're not going to tell you that the sigils were carved on the body and whatever. And we're going to actually talk a little bit about this with our guest tomorrow too, just the criminology aspects of what differentiates a crime versus a satanic crime. So this will tie into tomorrow's show.
I hesitate to mention this, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And years ago, I watched this movie, and it was really one of the creepiest movies I ever seen. And I'll mention the name of it. It's called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Okay. And I think it was Michael Rooker, a young Michael Rooker, that played Henry. It was based on Henry Lee Lucas. And that movie was so creepy, the way that they filmed it. And of course, it's based on a true story. I don't know how much of it was true, but the way that he stalked his victims, and whatever was wrong with him, he couldn't help but kill people. And it kind of showed towards the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. I would say don't watch this movie, by the way. Don't watch it. He found this girl, and he was like, they were in love with each other. They were going to, live happily ever after. But something happened, and you see him, dropping off a suitcase by the side of the road. And the idea was she was in the suitcase, and he just couldn't help but kill, even the person that he supposedly loved. It was a real creepy movie. And I grew up watching just disturbing movies for some reason, just because nobody was keeping an eye on me. And I used to go over to my cousins on the weekend, and that's what we did. We lived right next door to a movie rental place. And I would use, $10 and watch 10 movies all weekend long. And they were the worst of the worst horror movies. And man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember this, Tom, but I remember the very first VHS rental store in our town. And my brother and I would go there every weekend. And it seemed to me, because it was small, this was way before Blockbuster and that stuff. Like they were like little, with the wood paneling up in the shelves, right?
Right.
And there wouldn't ever be like a massive selection, but it seems to me in my memory that the horror movie section in those VHS stores were disproportionately larger than the other
massive
sections.
Yes.
And
massive.
And when Blockbuster came, you had these massive like romance and drama, but it was like, and I remember the day that Jeff and I went to the store to get 2 or 3 movies for the weekend, and we had basically nothing to rent because we had seen every horror movie that they had there. And it was lost on me as a teenager, because the only thing I was thinking then was like, oh crap, now we got to watch something stupid, right? But the fact is, what a voracious appetite for, oh my gosh, like, you know what I mean? That's all soaking up, brain cells in my non-conscious right now. So yeah, I mean, we just fed on that stuff, all the Freddy Krueger garbage and all the Jason movies, all the Halloween movies, and things were pretty, 40 years ago, the horror movies weren't as bad and as graphic. And even just with CGI, like you can watch a 1980s horror movie now and laugh because they look so ridiculous and fake, and but it looked real enough to us at the time as kids. And so
I'm looking at Colleen's comment here. We were only allowed to watch John Wayne Westerns and the Apple Dumpling Gang. I wish somebody would have protected me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the people that were supposed to be protecting me had no concept of the spiritual damage that was being done. And of course, when you are introduced to it, you kind of become addicted to it. Even in my adult years, I gravitated toward these movies. Okay. Not basically when I started hanging out with Russ, that's when everything changed, because the movies were like no longer thrilling for me because real life was more thrilling. So I don't, once in a while, I will really pray about it and I'll watch a movie for research purposes, but I really gotta be sure that that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing really I need to see, you know what I'm saying, that's going to, shed any light on anything that I don't know. I can't even think of a time, in recent years where I've watched something for research purposes. So I would just recommend, staying away, from any of these movies and getting rid of them if you have any of them. It's just not good for you. It's not healthy. So
yeah, agreed, 100%.
It's amazing how far we've come as far as being desensitized. When the original horror movies came out, like Frankenstein, there were people that could not sleep. They could not sleep because they were so frightened by that movie. And we look at it now and laugh.
Yeah.
The comment I was going to make about what Colleen said about John Wayne is my daughter has a little nephew, and he loves John Wayne. Okay. And it's so cute. It's so cute. And he knows more about John Wayne than, grown adults do. And he knows
Oh,
the
man.
characters, and he just loves John Wayne. He watches him over and over again. So anyway, that I would say it reminds me of the song "Come On Back, Jesus," and pick up John Wayne on the way. Have you heard that song?
No. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, the version I heard is Willie Nelson, and he's basically like saying, "Okay, come on back, Jesus. We got problems down here on earth, and bring John Wayne. He will help you like clean up this mess." So
Yes. Oh, I know. John Wayne is sort of like the epitome of when things were good. I know my dad is always reminiscing with great nostalgia about the themes of the John Wayne movies with all of the chivalry and man, I'm surprised that stuff hasn't been banned yet.
yeah, I no kidding.
The
No kidding.
sexist John Wayne movies.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Anyway, I don't know if we can get back on track here,
Yeah,
but
where were we?
we'll try. Yeah, I would rather talk about John Wayne, but apparently we're talking about psycho killers tonight, so we need to. So here we go. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, speaking of John Wayne, here is a country singer, Gene Shepherd. Okay, who's kind of in that John Wayne feel of in that time period. So this is a Daily Mail article. Interesting how they couldn't pick up on Hampstead, but yeah, Satanism happens other places, but not in the UK. So exclusive. Country great Gene Shepherd's granddaughter was murdered by a Satanist boyfriend and predicted her own death at hands of knife-obsessed natural-born killer. Okay, so this is Icy Sloan Hawkins, the granddaughter of singer Gene Shepherd, stood by her boyfriend, 21-year-old Travis Sanders, despite fearing he would kill her. The doomed relationship came to a tragic end in the early hours of Saturday morning when Sanders murdered Icy, 18, with a 10-inch Bowie knife. Sanders was then shot dead by Icy's step-grandfather, who was also attacked by the 21-year-old. In the months before her death, Icy started carrying a knife in fear she would have to use it in defense against Sanders. So she had plenty of warning signs, and who knows what kind of power he had over her. And scroll down. I want people to see a picture of this is this girl.
Oh.
Wow. It's so sad. You know what I'm saying? So sad. Yeah. And she knew she needed to break up with him, but she couldn't bring herself to do it for some reason. And maybe she was afraid,
Yeah. That story. Oh man, there were so many like flags in that one. I was kind of putting myself back in my little like 14 to 17-year-old mind and just thinking, oh my gosh, I so totally could have been in her shoes, with the cognitive dissonance between how I was raised and the stupid kind of like, the guys with the long hair and the rock shirts, oh my gosh. And, these guys that you'd see in school and they would have every single like red flag and you'd be like, yeah, that one. Right. And so I was just reading this and just thinking,
I want a project. Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, like Father, thank you so much for just kind of keeping me invisible through those really stupid years of my life. Because a lot in that article hit home. And I think too, this wasn't mentioned in the article, and this is my complete and utter conjecture, but when you're a teenage girl, sometimes what keeps you in a relationship that you have a whole bunch of red flags with is it's all just the peer pressure and the I don't want to have to change my relationship status on Facebook when all my other friends have boyfriends, and then people are going to think if I don't have a boyfriend I'm not attractive, and it's all this like so much of it feeds into the insecurities. And so we're almost as women just we like see a field of red flags and we just get out a lawnmower and we just start like mowing down the red flags. And oh my gosh, like fathers, we need dads to pay attention.
So,
Because
and Colleen says, long hair. Tom, do you feel attacked? Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I don't know. Obviously, I'm just a normal human being, and girls' parents did not like me. Let me just say that I was very stereotyped, and that's a thing that went on. But that's okay. Yeah.
In the 80s, it did not matter what you looked like, how creepy you were, if you had no job skills or hope for the future. If you had good hair, the girls wanted to be with you. It's like that was number one on the food chain.
I have more than I do now, but anyway. So for some people might find that surprising. Anyway, I totally lost track. Colleen's comment threw me off track. Okay, did I send this one over? This is one I never heard of before.
No,
and there might be a video to go with this. So was this in Texas? Satanic murder suspect kills again after being released from prison, police say. This blew my mind, okay? Go back up a little bit. I want to see the year on this. This was 2020. So a couple years ago, a murder suspect with a history of mental health issues has killed again after being released from prison while awaiting trial, police say. This is insane. Whoa. Edward O'Neill was 18 when he was charged with stabbing his 16-year-old friend Ryan Roberts to death and leaving his body in a wooded area in southeast Houston in 2016. He spent 4 years in the Harris County jail but was released on a lower bond in August this year in Houston, the Houston Chronicle reports. O'Neill, now 23, has been accused of committing another murder while out on bond over the initial case. It looks like he could have some issues. Houston police say O'Neill shot and killed his cousin's ex-boyfriend, 39-year-old Derek Mike, in a parking lot outside an apartment complex on 9601 West Montgomery Road in November 28th. O'Neill was charged Saturday and allegedly confessed to his mother, court records show. So he has mental issues, and that she is afraid of what else he may do, the woman told authorities, as revealed in probable cause documents as reported by the Chronicle. O'Neill's first case from 2016 has a pending trial due to his mental competency. The murder charge was transferred in 2018 to the competency restoration docket following notes his former defense attorney had left in court documents. I'm looking for the part where it says he was involved in Satanism. So go down a little bit more. And anyway, it says, I know that he's worshiping the devil and stuff, O'Neill told KHOU. He didn't tell me nothing. He didn't say nothing about doing nothing. I'm not going to say that, but he's mentally handicapped. So anyway, Satanism involved. They let him out. The dude, you could tell by his picture, he probably shouldn't be, out on bond unsupervised. But
worshiping the devil and stuff.
Yeah.
What's that stuff?
Yeah, the stuff is the part that could be even more scarier.
Maybe murdering people.
Yeah. Vic, the truth is there is no shortage of these cases. From these are recent cases, right? Every one of these, in the last few years. The oldest one was the Miranda one from maybe 2013. So within the last 10 years. So satanic crimes are continuing to happen, okay, in America, around the world, and we really don't know how many of them there are, okay? I say, I had a theory a few years ago that you've pretty much got to, on some level, be possessed to take the life of another human being, okay? maybe I've altered that a little bit just because humans have such a low, um, uh, they have no value of other human beings.
Mhm.
So whether you're an abortion doctor or one of these satanic kids, the devil is in the details. Okay. I believe that he is, he's tempting us. He's pushing us. As Christians, we know we can be tempted, right? The enemy
Mhm.
can tempt us to sin. The enemy can tempt us to, to be complacent or whatever. So if he can get to us who are Christians, who love the Lord, who read the Bible, who pray to God, if he can do that to us, what can he do to somebody that's wide open? A lot more. Then what can he do to somebody that dives in to Satanism and says, here I am, devil, I want to serve you? Okay. A lot, even more than the person that might be an atheist or that might just say, I don't believe or whatever.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I think too, especially for Christians and especially people we were raised in Christian homes and we've spent decades, doing our little Pilgrim's Progress walk. And I think that we always have to be aware that we are capable of anything like this. And because I think where we feel safe is like, oh, I could never do anything like that. You couldn't do anything like that right now, but it is shocking to me. And we've all seen it. We've all seen it. We've even seen it recently with public figures. All it takes is one stupid decision and it builds and it builds. And not everybody turns out to be a murderer and whatnot, but I have been shocked at the transformation of some people who I never thought would leave the faith, who just because they let a sin in and they became vulnerable. For some, the downward spiral is so deep. And so I just think it's always safe to just know we are 100% reliant upon the grace of God. I'm going to wake up tomorrow because of his grace. I'll still believe because of his grace. I'll get through another 24-hour increment in his grace. And I know a lot of Christians say, well, I could never do that. And the devil waits for that. He loves the people that think that they've got armor on of their own armor. Right. So, I don't know. We read stories like this and we empathize and we think about, okay, what was a home like life? And here's all the disadvantages they had. But any of us, if Satan played us correctly, he waits. We've talked about this before, Tom. He waits for that perfect timing, that time in our life when, tragedy strikes and we're in grief and we're more vulnerable to doing things we wouldn't have done. And all he has to do is get his foot in the door. Be sober-minded, vigilant.
yeah. He'll try anything. You know what I'm saying? And he'll whisper in your ear. And I'm not about blaming the devil for everything, but he plays his part, no doubt. Vic, I don't even like running over a squirrel personally. So I don't know how anybody could use their own bare hands to murder another human being.
I do not know either. We have a bunch of walking sticks in the yard now, like the big cute bugs, and now there's tons of leaves all over the ground. And I'm like, the other day I was like, oh, I'm probably running over a bunch of those cute bugs with my Jeep. And I felt so bad knowing that I might be like running over the cute walking stick bugs. So I hear you there.
There was a story that hit the paper here probably, I would say about 25 years ago. I remember this just because of how bizarre it was. A guy in my town got caught building like a box to keep a woman in.
Oh,
And he was going to kidnap this woman.
Yeah.
And put her in this box. And it was so crazy. He got caught with the box, right? And a friend of mine knew him and he told me about him. He's like, yeah, did you hear about so-and-so? And I was like, well, I don't know who it was. He's like, yeah, I knew that guy. He said he had a calling on his life. He had a calling on his life and he rejected it. And it's so, everybody was just like so blown away that he was doing something so demented.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a prime example. I just remember when I was in high school, my dad was so, present when it came to like the purity stuff. And so I remember him asking me probably in 12th grade, you know, are you saving yourself for marriage? You know, and so we had this conversation, and I said, yeah. And Dad said, ask all your friends that question. And he said, the ones that say yes will, and the ones that say no and I don't know won't. And he said, because it's a decision that you have to make, you know, whatever. And so I always thought that was fascinating. And so I asked all my friends, I'm like, are you gonna save yourself for marriage? And every single one of them that said yes did, and every single one of them that said I don't know didn't. I'm like, man, where's my dad get this stuff? But honestly, with this stuff, it does require forethought. Like I think about Jonathan Edwards, where he had his resolutions, you know, and it's not our own will, like I'm going to do this in my own strength. But if we don't resolve ahead of time each day, if we don't resolve, I want to walk in faithfulness today. I want to walk in purity. I want to walk in holiness. If we get up in the morning and our flesh and our heart isn't unified with us in that resolve, I will walk in holiness today, we're kind of sitting ducks.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading some of these interesting comments in the chat. There's some cool stuff going on over there.
Awesome.
But you know, I saw, you know, comments earlier kind of talking about, you know, referring to, because I wasn't protected, I was able, you know, to protect my kids. And I'm very, you know, careful about what I let them be exposed to, or I guess more than anything, I try to engage, you know, I try to engage them about what they're seeing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to jump in front of it before they experience it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My kids go to public school. There's probably a lot of people that would disagree with that, and I would probably agree with you. You know, it's not the greatest thing, and every single kid is different. My daughter went, and she basically was a missionary, and she went to school, and she was very bold, and she was not swayed. You know what I'm saying? My older boys did not do so well. Okay. They were very impressionable, and they were followers. So my youngest son, Gavin, he's not really impressed by anybody, and he kind of does his own thing. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I have, you know, then others that are kind of indifferent. Forget where I was going with this, but anyway, I would just encourage parents, encourage grandparents, or whatever, just to be there, and we can, you know, we can put our foot down, and we can say, and we should, you know, obviously there are things that are off limits, okay, but there are things that, how do I want to say this, Vic? We can kind of engage our kids, you know what I'm saying, as they're going to see this stuff. I'll give an example, and we're going to shut this show down. But I had to kind of jump in front of this LGBTQ thing at school, and talk to my son at an age that I normally wouldn't talk to a kid about sexual things, you know. And I said, and I even apologized to him, and I said, hey, you're going to be seeing these types of things at school, and I just want to give you a heads up. Sorry, I got to tell you about this. This is kind of crazy, but I would rather you hear it from me than learn it from somebody else at school. Okay. Yeah. And then I showed him what the Bible says and explained to him all of those things. So anyway, I'm still learning, right? We all are. And maybe I will have it figured out someday. By then it'll be too late. But
yeah, well, fortunately, this is the awesome thing about following Christ as an adult. he has a way of compensating all of mom and dad's errors. And you find yourself loving them to death anyway, right? So,
yeah. Hey, I want to put up this comment from Tanya about your dad. I think this is pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
So it says, Vicky Joy has such a precious dad. So happy for those that had great families. I didn't. It makes me feel unworthy and uncared for. Well, you are very cared for, Tanya, and we appreciate you so much, and we think you're awesome. So what an awesome friend, and man, I got to see her twice this year. This is somebody that I've known for years, right?
Mm.
And it's so cool how this happened. And I'll just mention this. Vicky, you were there Sunday morning. Tanya doesn't know this, but when we had church service Sunday morning in Louisville, and I mentioned the story about how I did a conference in Nashville, Tennessee back in 2010, and somebody from that conference had my contact information, and they said, hey, would you talk to my friend Tanya? You know, she needs prayer. And I said, sure, I will. So I, over the phone, met this lady named Tanya, and we became friends over the phone. And I never met her. You know, for years we had talked, and her health wasn't the greatest when I first met her, but God healed her and helped her with a lot of things. And she's so precious to me because, you know, she always lets me know she's praying for me and stuff. And then she kind of gives, you know, ideas and comments on things. And, you know, she asked me questions. So the cool thing is I got to meet her last year when she came up to St. Louisville. She came up to the conference up there. And then 2 times this year, because we went to Louisville, and she was on with David Heavener. Okay. And she's been doing deliverance and ministry in Louisville for years. But the thing was, what was crazy was 10 years ago, I did a conference in Tennessee, and it was connected to a conference that happened in Louisville because of how God just did all that stuff. So anyway,
love it. That's awesome.
Speaking of conferences.
Yes.
Speaking of conferences, Vic, I know of one coming up in April. Do you know about that one?
I know. It looks so good. I think I'm actually going to go.
Sweet. I am so glad you said that because I need you to be there. Folks, Out of the Darkness Spiritual Warfare Conference, April 1st and 2nd, 2023, Dayton, Ohio. Early registration starts November 21st. And we're going to give you more information about that later. But we're going to release a certain amount of tickets at a certain price, and it's going to be early bird special, okay? The first people that get those tickets are going to get the best price, okay? And then it's going to slowly go up. But even the most expensive tickets, as far as conferences go, they're going to be they're going to be very, very reasonable. We want to keep it. We're going to try to keep it low so we can get more people out, okay? We realize inflation is there and stuff. So if we get more people, then we can keep it low. So, yeah. By the way, there's somebody else that's going to be there. And did I mention Greg Reed? I like how you did that, Vic. Like pointed right down because Colleen is like right underneath you right now. So anyway, we're going to go out with a trailer for the new conference. So, guys, we will see you tomorrow night. But for now, we're saying goodbye.